It's soup season and I'm excited about it.
I am so excited about soup season. I just want to say like soupy, 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 soup. It's been running through my head and I just have to get, do you ever do that where you just have to get it out?
Now you
Soupy,
got it
soupy,
out.
soupy, soup. It's like doobie doobie doo.
I feel like I should be wearing a sweater for this video. Like I have a sweater that says cozy on it.
Oh,
I feel like
yeah.
I should be wearing that.
So this is kind of a sweater. It's like a heavier, it's a knit, but it's a heavier material and it's short sleeve, which is really great for hot flashes. Like it's almost like layering, but it's like cozy, but let's not get too cozy. Isn't it fun? This is so fun.
I saw this thing where Drew Barrymore was talking on, I don't know if it was her show or another talk show, but she was saying that it's like either you have your kids really young and then you're too young to know what you're doing, or you have your kids when you're like in your mid to late 30s,
Sure.
and then they're going through their hormonal stage of teenagehood when you're starting to go through premenopause. And it's just like hormones clashing. And so I had a good laugh at that because I kind of did it both ways. I had my kids
you did.
really young. I had my first when I was 19, so like super, super young. And then I'm still in this parenting thing, like as I'm doing the pre-menopause, whatever. I just keep going. So I just hit all the phases.
All the phases are great. Yeah, my teenagers are teenagers, and so I bought the Loom total body deodorant, and my daughter saw it today, and she's like, "Mom, are you starting to smell like an old lady?" And I couldn't say no. Like, I kind of tried to brush it off, and I'm like, I just wanted to see what it would be like, and I don't know. But the answer is like, my scent has changed.
That's funny.
And it is hormone related, and maybe that sounds terrible to say. Do I smell
I'm
like?
standing pretty close to you and you don't smell that.
Because I got the stuff.
Okay, if you're here for soup recipes,
Sorry about the menopause.
we'll get to
I need
them.
that on a t-shirt. Sorry about the menopause.
We should totally get all kinds of shit. My brain is not braining. That's kind of my recent, like this week I sent Christy an email about like Fruits Meals 101 club related things and, you know, some work stuff. And I was like, my brain is not braining. And there were things that I needed to tell you that need to get done, but I don't know what they are. So I'll let you know if I remember. And I haven't.
I've not received a follow-up email on that topic.
It's 2 days later. I have no idea. And they were important. So, yeah.
Clearly.
My brain is not braining. But I need that on a shirt. But the soup is souping.
The soup is souping.
Soupity soup.
Soupy, soupy, soup. I know.
All right, first soup is lasagna soup, and it encompasses all the things because it's a flavor explosion for real. It's fancy enough that you could serve it to company. It's homey and comforting and delicious and hearty enough that you could like sit in a chair by the fire curled up with a book with like the cat beside you.
I am hot. Just thinking about that scenario, it sounds great, but not. The soup sounds amazing. I've had the soup, but I'm going to need to sit in a chair at a table.
Okay, that's fair.
With my sweater hanging on the back of the chair.
Like, I'm gonna sit with the soup.
Yeah, you sit with
and
the
like,
soup.
Oh, and fuzzy socks.
Yes.
I love my mug says warm tea, fuzzy socks, soft blankets, and cozy sweaters. And
Mine says cup half full of attitude.
no, cup half full attitude.
Cup half full attitude. Oh, I've been reading it wrong for like a year. It's her mug. I'm like, I got a cup half full of attitude, and I had attitude when I said it. Holy, I need the t-shirt.
My brain is not braining.
Sorry about the menopause.
Okay, so to make this amazing lasagna soup, you're gonna add some browned ground beef or Italian sausage. We recommend the spicy Italian sausage because it just takes it up a notch into a large freezer bag. Then you're gonna add some oregano, basil, minced garlic. We just use our garlic from a jar. Some red pepper flakes, salt, pepper, some bay leaves, fennel, nutmeg, a diced onion. Now you can add chicken broth or beef broth if you used beef to this at this point, or you can just make a note on the bag to add them on the day of cooking if you want a thinner bag. Then you're gonna add fire roasted tomatoes and tomato paste. You're gonna just squish that together in the bag to combine it, and because it's a fun sensory experience, you're going to get out as much air as you can.
Can you tell that she's written books about sensory? Yes, she has.
You're gonna seal it, and then in a quart-size freezer bag, you're going to put a cup of ricotta cheese. You're gonna staple those bags together above the seal and get them in your freezer. On the day that you go to make this, you're gonna thaw it. You're gonna pour the contents of that large freezer bag into a stovetop pot. You're gonna cook this until it's boiling, and then you're gonna simmer it for about 20 minutes. You're gonna add 5 lasagna noodles, no more, no less. We have gotten this down to a science. You're gonna break those up and just stir them right into the pot. Then when you are ready to serve this, you spoon it into your bowls and you top them with some of that ricotta cheese that you had in your quart-size bag. And if you want, you can also add some Parmesan and some red pepper flakes, and yum.
Super yum. Oh my goodness. It is like, it's got to be like one of the best soups that we have. And we have a lot of good soups.
For sure. Top 5 soups for sure. Maybe top 3. I say, actually, I'm thinking about it now, and I'm going to give it top 3.
What will the other ones be? Or we're going to talk about them. So
Yeah,
you
we are. When we get to them, I'm going to be like, that one.
Okay.
And it's not this next one. It's good, though, and it's healthy.
I haven't had this one yet because it's new.
This is, I have had it, and then I also took it and I spooned, once I cooked it up, I took the cooked soup and I spooned it into super cubes. And then once they were frozen, I popped them out because then they're in 1 cup servings, put them in a freezer bag, and I gave them to a friend of mine who just had surgery, because while this soup is not in my top 5 or my top 3 for sure, it is a health, like it's one that's really good if you're not feeling well, because it's really got healthy properties.
It's got ginger and turmeric in it. So let's get into the soup. Into your large freezer bag, you're going to add 3 boneless, skinless chicken breasts. You're going to add in a diced onion, diced celery, minced ginger. We use ginger from a squeezy tube, kind of like we use garlic. We are going to add in some sweet potatoes that have been peeled and cubed, and chicken broth, thyme, salt, pepper, a bay leaf, some turmeric, and some full-fat coconut milk, and a squeeze of lemon juice. You're going to add that all into your bag. If you are finding that your bag is very heavy and very full, you can omit that chicken broth and add it on the day of, because, you know, the package it comes in is 4 cups. So you can just have that for adding on the day of. But if you add it on the day, you'll just have a thicker bag. That's all, and that's okay. If freezer space is not a problem for you, go ahead and add it now, and then it is already done. It is one and done. You're going to seal it up, freeze it. When you go to cook this, you're going to thaw it. You're going to throw this into your slow cooker. You're going to add a cup of water, and then you are going to cook it on low for 6 to 8 hours, or on high for 3 to 4 hours. When it's done, you shred the chicken, and then how did you serve this? How did you like to serve this when you made it?
Just like it is.
Just like it is? Like you didn't add any crackers or cheese or...
Nope. It's hearty enough with chicken.
And the sweet potatoes.
Sweet potatoes, because you've got a carb in there, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. This does sound like a really interesting soup.
Hearty and healthy, and great for fall, because it does have like the yellow from the turmeric and the orange from the sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
And the turmeric like makes the chicken into a yellowy color. So
It's kind of like having saffron rice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Nice.
it's just the colors of fall.
Awesome.
All right, this one is like going to knock your socks off. Hold on for the ride, because there's a lot of ingredients coming, and some that you might not have expected would go in a freezer bag, but they do, and they work. And this is our Mulligatawny soup. Oh my goodness. I had this soup at a restaurant like over a decade ago, and they only had it on Thursdays, so you had to hit the restaurant on the Thursday to, to get the Mulligatawny soup. I just loved it so much. And then we moved away from where, like, close to, I guess it was like 20 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my, time flies. It was. It had to be 20 years ago because we've lived here for like 17 or 18 years.
Yeah.
I'm shocked. Okay, so I had this soup 20 years ago.
And it's never left your mind.
No, and I've talked about it, and then finally I was like, I do invent recipes for a living. Maybe.
I'm going to reverse engineer this soup.
Yes. So this is our Mulligatawny soup. Into your freezer bag, you're going to add some chopped onion, peeled and diced carrot, a jalapeno that's seeded and diced, unless you like things spicy, and then you can keep the seeds in there and the membranes. Some minced garlic, some ginger from a squeezy tube, and then some Granny Smith apples that are cored and diced. You can go ahead and leave the peels on, or you can take them off if you prefer, but this is the thing where I didn't realize that we could throw apples into freezer bags and it would all work out beautifully. Then we've got our diced tomatoes, some curry powder, cumin, paprika, cinnamon, turmeric, cardamom, thyme, red lentils, and salt and pepper. We're gonna mix this all together in the bag, and it's beautiful because it's got nice colors too. And then you're going to get that in your freezer once you get the air out, because the air is what can cause your freezer burn. When you go to make this, you're gonna thaw it, bring it to a boil, turn the heat down, simmer it for about 30 minutes, and then you're gonna put an immersion blender through this. You don't have to do that part. If you like chunky soup, you can go ahead and leave it as is, but I like to run mine through an immersion blender. Then you're gonna stir in 2/3 of a cup unsweetened coconut milk. If you want, you can top it with some green onions and serve it with naan.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And that has everything but the kitchen sink in it.
It's so good, and all those seasonings, right?
And so nice with the apples, and that's a little bit of sweetness.
And for fall, like it's got cinnamon and apples. Yum.
I recently made something called Irish barmbrack, and
what in the world?
it's a loaf.
Oh,
it is a loaf. I saw it on an Instagram reel, and I'm like, I need to make that, whatever that is. So I started getting into this recipe, and it's got like, we're in Canada, and so it had like grams for the flour, and so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to convert a bit or just weigh it, and that's okay. But it called for something called mixed spice. And so I Googled that, and it's something kind of like a pumpkin pie spice, but it's very specific. It's mixed spice. So some of them I didn't even have to make the mixed spice. Like, I looked at Bulk Barn, they didn't carry mixed spice. So I made my own based on a recipe that I Googled, and it has allspice. Does allspice have celery seed in it? Like, can you eat it?
Yeah.
Okay, then I can share the barmbrack with you. Barmbrack.
Okay.
Barmbrack. I can't say it right every time. Cinnamon, cardamom, cloves, nutmeg, mace. How often do you cook with mace?
Like once in my life.
I have one cookie recipe that calls for mace, and I have 2 things of mace because I forgot I bought it the first time.
Right.
So I'm glad I got to use a lot. And then cinnamon and ginger. And so you mix these all together, and that's now your mixed spice. And then you soak raisins in black tea. So I used Earl Grey, and make your loaf with that.
It sounds so interesting.
It sounds so interesting. That now you know why I had to. Now, I think I did my calculations a little bit wrong. I think I put too much flour in. It called for self-rising flour, and which you could make your own, like you just add in your baking powder. But it's a little dry. So I think I would like to try it again since I have the mixed spice. I went to the effort of buying fresh cardamom so I could have mixed spice. And I did replace my allspice because my allspice was pretty sad looking. And old. And yeah, it's a really interesting flavor. My daughter loves it. My son looked at it and said, it's got raisins in it. Ew.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm only so on it because it's a weird spice. It's a weird seasoning. So the Mulligatawny soup, it has the cardamom. Like I was waiting for you to say mace because it has these flavors, right?
I'm so interested now to try that. As soon as you said you soak it in black tea, I was like, oh, that's my jam. Like,
right?
I think I'm gonna love this bread. I don't know for sure, but I'm totally good. Christy, for those of you that don't know, lives 2 doors that way. So it's pretty easy for us to like, sometimes
I'll just run the bread over here.
I'll make a new recipe and I'll be like, you have to try this. One of my kids will just drop some off at her house. And,
Yeah, totally.
So it's easy to share things back and forth, and also I can borrow whatever ingredients I'm out of and she can borrow whatever ingredients she's out of, and we do it often.
My pantry is her pantry, and now we both have cardamom, but you can borrow mace if you need it, because I don't have buckets of it apparently. Okay, we will get away from the loaf pan and the weird spices. These will be familiar spices to you. This is Italian wedding soup, and this is our version of it. Into your large freezer bag, you are going to add some Italian sausage that has been cut into the sausage and made into meatballs and then cooked. And then you cool them and then you add them to the bag. Then you're going to add in some chopped carrots, some chicken broth, parsley, and salt and pepper to taste. Now you'll notice that the bag got very full here, and I ended up putting it into a container to hold it steady. You can make freezer meals with a friend. The friend can hold the container. You can buy those little V stands that you can put in. We don't typically use them because we find it kind of slows us down. But I had a container handy, or like a pitcher, a water pitcher, a juice jug, well. Totally works. Whatever you need to do, or like in the last recipe I was talking about, you can add the chicken broth at a later time when you go to make this. You're going to remove that excess air and seal it up. You're going to put 1 cup of small pasta, something like orzo, or if you want to be fun, you could do like alphabet pasta. And you're going to put that in a medium-sized container. And then you're going to zip that up, staple it to the big bag, and freeze it. When you go to cook this, you are going to remove the staples. You're going to allow it to thaw. In a large pot, bring the large bag contents to a full boil. You're going to reduce the heat to low, to a simmer, and you're going to add in pasta and fresh chopped spinach. You're going to continue to cook for another 5 to 10 minutes until your pasta is fully cooked, and they're teeny tiny, so it really won't take long. And then you are going to ladle this into bowls and then sprinkle some Parmesan cheese on top before you serve it. And this is it's a pretty dish, and it's very simple. Like there's not a lot, like it's like the opposite of the Mulligatawny. There is not a lot going on here.
It's a brothier soup.
It's a brothier soup, and it's very lovely.
This next one is not brothy. It is like...
It is creamy.
It is thick.
And it is delicious.
I already know. So every year we do a video at the end of, like usually in December, where we do like our top of video. Top of the year, and we only include recipes that are new to us that year, that we've invented and tasted and just like cannot get enough of. And I can already tell you that this is going in my list this year. This is our roasted carrot, orange, and brie soup.
Now, I will also say, I was the one who told you about this recipe, about this soup.
She did.
I was at a restaurant, and I'm like, you need to come here and eat this so that you can deconstruct it, and we need to have this in the club.
But I wasn't able to go and eat it, so it took me like a year to invent this recipe, because there were not a lot of ideas online of how you could do this, and because I hadn't tasted it, I couldn't deconstruct it the same way. So I had to invent my own version, but I think I did a darn good job.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, you did.
So for this one, this is going to be different than any of the ones we've done so far. And because we're gonna cook it up right now before freezing it, it's the perfect one to be able to separate either into super cubes or just smaller quart-sized freezer bags and have individual portions of. And I love having individual portions of soups, because soup for lunch, like I work from home, so being able to have soup for lunch is just amazing. And I also make grilled cheese for the freezer so that it's just all ready to go in the pan and cook up. So I can have soup and grilled cheese anytime I want, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's the good life right there. That's all anybody ever asked for.
But definitely a little bit more work on the day you go to make this, because what you're gonna do is, on a parchment paper lined cookie sheet, you're gonna lay out some peeled and roughly chopped carrots. You're gonna drizzle those with some olive oil and salt and toss them. You're gonna roast those for like 25 to 35 minutes. Then you're gonna add diced onion and some whole peeled garlic cloves onto those baking sheets and add some more olive oil and salt. Toss that and roast for a little bit longer just to allow that garlic and onion to roast up. You're gonna place all of that into your large pot. It's super easy if you use the parchment paper as a bit of a funnel. And then you're gonna add some chicken broth and thyme. You're gonna simmer that for like 15 to 20 minutes, and then you're gonna run an immersion blender through it until it's nice and smooth. Then you wanna add some Brie cheese. You take off the rind first and cube it. Orange juice and heavy cream. You want to simmer that until your Brie is just melted, and then you want to season it with pepper. Now it's okay if you still have small little bits of Brie, because that just adds to the whole experience when you're eating it. So if it hasn't fully melted, it's okay. Then when it's cooled, you can transfer it into a large freezer bag if you want to have a family size portion, or you can put it into, like we said, the super cubes or the quart size freezer bags, and then freeze it. Because this is already cooked, it's just a quick reheat on the day you want to eat it. If you want, you can garnish it with chives. You could also add like a little tiny dollop of sour cream before the chives. But anyway, it's just so good.
It is so good. And when we were making this, it was kind of tricky to cut the rind off of the cheese and then kind of cube the cheese. It says rind removed in the recipe, and that's totally fine, but we didn't really want to put a giant blob of the Brie in there. And so somebody in our first video where we made this suggested to freeze the Brie for a little bit so it gets a little more solid. It's a little easier to work with, because I don't think we have video of me cutting it. But it was getting really gooey, and it was getting like difficult. So that is my hint for you. If you have never had to cut Brie before, freeze it for a little while, maybe like 20 minutes, half an hour, let it firm up before you cut it, and then you can put it in. You'll cut it. It'll cut so much nicer. This next recipe is chicken taco soup, and this is a soup that eats like a meal, and I will tell you why at the end. Into our large freezer bag, we're going to add 3 boneless, skinless chicken breasts, a chopped onion, chili-style beans, black beans that have been drained and rinsed, kernel corn that has been drained, tomato sauce, a can of beer, some diced tomatoes, some diced chilies, and taco seasoning. We're going to mix that all around in our bag, and we're going to seal it up and freeze it. On the day you go to cook this, you are going to allow it to thaw. You're going to add it to your slow cooker. You're going to add 4 cups or a box of chicken broth, unless you don't want to, and I will tell you about that again at the end. You're gonna make it into the soup, cook it on low for 4 to 7 hours, and then shred your chicken up. When you go to serve this, you're going to put it into bowls, and then you're gonna add your sour cream. You're gonna add up some tortilla strips or crushed up tortillas, some green onions, some shredded cheese. It's like you're making a taco in your bowl of soup. And my goodness, is that so good. It is so good. And that's why I'm saying it's kind of like eating a meal, and it is. But also, at Charlotte's house, they don't put the broth in.
Okay, so what happened, we have sometimes put the broth in and made it a soup, but what happened is many years ago, I was at the hospital with one of my daughters. Seems to be the story of my life.
It kind of is.
And while I was gone, my husband went to make this meal, and it just says to put it in the slow cooker. He only read that part of the instructions. He did not read to add the chicken broth. So at the end, he shredded it up, and he assumed that it was like a chicken taco,
like a filling,
kind of whatever. And so they rolled it in flour tortillas, and they loved it. Some of them added cheese, some of them didn't. I have some lactose intolerant kids, and some of them dipped it in salsa and like whatever. And they were all like, "Oh, that was so good," you know. So I got home, and my husband was like, "That is such good filling," and I'm like, "What?
What did you eat?"
Like, that is soup. And he is like, "That is definitively not soup." I'm like, "Well, if you add the chicken broth, it is."
Get the bag out of the garbage. We're going to read the instructions.
Right? And so now, whenever I make this, I like usually...
Do you poll the family?
No, but like when Christy and I do meals together, normally I'll pop a video of our last mega session there because what we do is get together once every 3 months and make like 3 months worth of meals for both our families. And we make usually 4 of each recipe as long as it's a tried and true recipe and not an experiment. So then I get 2 and she gets 2. Mm-hmm. So I get to use one of mine as soup and one of it as filling, and then there's more variety.
Oh, that's a good idea. That is a good idea. I just always make the soup. So that's
good soup.
It's a really good soup. And we like taco soup at our house. I love a good taco soup. So you can make it whichever way you like, or both, or whatever. Make 2, and then you have the choice, just like Charlotte. I love that.
Now, if you clicked on this video and you thought, who can talk about soup for an hour? You're probably getting the idea of why we can talk about soup for an hour, but also, these are not your run-of-the-mill soups. Like, we've got some here that, you know, we're going to get to like a minestrone and stuff later, like a corn chowder, like you're going to be like, yeah, that's soup. But there are some here that are outside the box or maybe not what you were expecting. And this one is like perfect for fall, but also it's just, okay. This is our curried butternut squash soup. And the flavors in this are insane. Oddly enough, I've even made this at a fancy dinner party as a little appetizer, like in shot glasses.
I remember that. Yes.
It's good enough not just to serve to guests. If you had a restaurant, this would be good enough to serve in your restaurant. For this, you're going to add some cubed sweet potato, some cubed and seeded butternut squash, olive oil, minced onion, minced garlic, minced ginger, curry paste. You can use mild or spicy depending on your spice preference, cumin, salt, pepper, and vegetable broth or chicken broth. You're going to just squish that together in your bag, seal it, freeze it. On the day you go to make this, you thaw it, and you're going to add 2 cups of water and the bag contents to a large stovetop pot. And then when everything is nice and soft and all cooked through, you're gonna run an immersion blender in this. You are going to swear that this has cream in it. It's so creamy, but it doesn't. It's just because of the immersion blender and because of like the sweet potato and the butternut squash. But I wanna tell you something. When you go to make this, when you go to assemble this, it can be a bit of a pain to cut the sweet potato or the squash. So one thing that you can do that makes it a little bit easier is you can put it, even with the skin on it, like just as it is in the microwave, and like microwave it for a minute. And it's so much easier to cut after that.
Oh.
You don't do that?
No.
Oh, it's so much easier to cut, especially the squash.
And I'm going to be making butternut squash casserole for some family. We're having family over this coming weekend. And I thought normally I would cut it, peel it, and boil it, because that's what the recipe says. But I'm just going to cut it, seed it, and throw it on a tray and roast it, because then it's done. And I've done it before where I've roasted the heck out of it until it's starting to brown, and it's really, but it's too much for that dish. I think just plain old roasting it. I mean, there's a reason why they say to boil it. It's because so it's milder, right? And
you can kind of like, depending on the size,
I've not heard that.
You can put it in for like 30 seconds, check it, a minute, 2 minutes, like, because some of them, like, and I just check it with a fork, and like, you don't want the fork to be able to go through it because you're not trying to cook it, but you want there to be a bit of give, and as soon as there's a bit of give, then you know it's ready to cut.
No kidding.
Ooh, usually it's kitchen tips with Christy, because
today was okay. I do have one that I'm saving, but I'm not going to tell you today.
Oh,
I am saving it for like a sheet pan day or something.
Okay,
I'm really excited about it.
You need to write it down because menopause brain and all that.
I have almost phoned you to tell you about it like 10 times since I discovered this. I don't think I will forget.
Okay.
Because when we go to do it, I'm going to do the thing and you're going to be like, whoa. So stay tuned. You keep watching our videos because I will show you too. And you'll probably be like, oh, I already knew that, Christy. but I'm excited about it. Okay. Yes, such good soup. Like, such good soup. And it is smooth as silk. It is a lovely, lovely soup. This next one is also a little bit of an odd one and not something, we weren't even sure that we could freeze this. We had to do this as a test run. It is dill pickle soup and a little more complicated. Honestly, it's kind of complicated.
It's like that carrot, orange, and brie one in terms of a lot of work at the outset, but then you're so glad later and it pays off.
Yeah, and I think freezer meals in general are like that. You either do all your work up front and it's just a reheat, or you hardly do anything and then you fully cook it later, right? So this is one of the ones where we're doing all the work up front, and this is also one of the ones that if you like this soup, you should make 5 of them.
Oh, completely. Like, I have this giant, I'm gonna get it. I have this giant pot. It's giant, right? And this is what we make the dill pickle soup in, because this, you know what? We have a photo of our second oldest son in this pot when he's about 2 years old.
Oh, cute. I have a picture of my daughter, not that pot, obviously, but yeah, I have a picture of my daughter in a pot, and she is sitting there holding a little spoon. She looks so cute.
That's so cute.
Toddlers are fun.
We're not advocating cooking your children, but
put them in the pot for the picture, because that's fun. Into a large pot, combine chicken broth, peeled and quartered potatoes, peeled and chopped carrots, and butter. Bring it to a boil and reduce to a simmer and cook until the potatoes are tender, about 20 minutes. Add 1 cup of chopped pickles and continue to simmer. In a shaker, mix water and flour together and stir into the soup. Slowly add in the sour cream while continuing to stir. Add more pickle juice and add your seasonings. You're going to add Cajun seasoning, fresh dill, dry mustard powder, cinnamon, nutmeg, cayenne pepper, and a little bit of salt and pepper, but we might adjust the salt again later. Increase heat to return soup to a simmer and cook for 5 more minutes and then remove from heat. Using an immersion blender, blend until smooth and then add a remaining ½ cup of chopped pickles. At this point, taste it and decide if you need to add more. The dill pickle juice will make it salty on its own, so you're probably good, but you have to decide. Cool and add it to a large freezer bag or divide it into several medium freezer bags or super cubes. When you go to have this, you're going to thaw it, reheat it on the stovetop or in the microwave, stirring occasionally, and garnish with some more sliced dill pickles, some fresh dill, or freshly ground pepper. And it was very surprising the first time I had dill pickle soup, because it's a cream soup, but it's got such intense flavor with the pickles. I was just shocked. And I love it every time I have it.
I really want to make more of this so that we can get individual sizes into our freezers so we can have it for lunch, because, oh my goodness.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's the time of year.
It's the time of year. Everybody you know has got a jar of pickles somewhere in their basement on their canning shelf. So yeah, go grab some of those and make this. It's good.
Okay, this is exciting. I was not planning to include this soup in this video, because we kind of this morning we're thinking about, oh, we should do a soups video, it's the time of year. And so we went into the Freezer Meals 101 Club and I just clicked the button for soups, so it just filtered all of our soup recipes. And the orange carrot brie soup isn't in there yet, but it was fresh in my mind because I just dropped it off to my friend. Same with the ginger turmeric one, because I also gave her some of that. So those are fresh in my mind. So I knew, even though they're not in the club yet, I included them in the video, pulled the recipes for them. But I forgot about, in our last mega session, I had decided that I was going to experiment with frozen hash browns instead of potatoes and see if those would work. And so we had done 2 versions of kind of potato soups. One was a potato ham soup, and it worked. And I don't want to make this video like 2 or 3 hours long, so I'm not going to include that. But we did a baked potato soup. And it was so good, and it wasn't on my radar until Christy was telling you about the dill pickle soup, and she mentioned potatoes, and I was like, oh yes, because potatoes are one of those things that actually don't freeze when they're raw. That's why I had this thought about, I wonder if I could use frozen hash browns and make it work, because in the dill pickle soup you have to cook it up in order to be able to freeze it. This one, you don't. You throw everything in the bag. So Into your large bag, you're going to add some diced hash browns, minced onion, peeled and diced carrots, some butter, salt, pepper, bay leaves, thyme, heavy cream, sour cream, chives, and some chicken broth. Or again, you can add that on the day of cooking if your bag is getting too full. If you want to, you can also add some cooked and crumbled bacon into a medium-sized bag and staple those bags together. When you go to make this, you thaw it. You don't even have to fully thaw it. Mine was not fully thawed. It was just thawed enough that you could move the bag. Then I put that in a large stovetop pot, and then you want to shake together some flour with some water and stir that in so that it thickens. Now, when I did this, I was like, oh, I used to have one of those things that you could shake.
The gravy shaker.
Yeah, but I don't have one anymore. So I was thinking, what could I use? And then I was like, I have a cocktail shaker. Don't use that.
Oh, it didn't work?
It did not work.
Oh, no.
I was like, had flour water running everywhere.
Do you know what I use? Is one of those shakers for making
Like smoothie or
smoothies. Yeah, like
protein
protein shakes, and because it'll even have the little ball in it sometimes as a whisk. The only thing there is, so the old Tupperware gravy shaker had a hole in it for pressure, and you would just put your finger over the hole and then shake it.
Yeah.
Now this, because it might build pressure in there, when you pop the lid, you have to be careful. That's all.
You might want to walk it over to your sink and do it over your sink.
Totally. Yes.
The cocktail shaker.
The cocktail shaker, not so much.
It was such a mess. Maybe it was just the particular type of cocktail shaker that I'm not very versed in this. But anyway, so I was like, note to self, next time, shake this a different way.
And I've totally done it in a mason jar too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would work. So you're going to cook this with your flour water mixture on your stove. When it's fully cooked, you can run an immersion blender through it. And I am telling you, this is like restaurant quality baked potato soup, and you made it with frozen hash browns, which is amazing. You want to top each of your bowls with some crumbled bacon, shredded cheese, and either some chives or some green onions. When we had ours, I didn't have any green onions, so I just picked some chives from our dwindling garden, and it was delicious. But the reason I'm excited about this soup, even though it's just a baked potato soup, is that for those of you who've watched our channel for a while, you know that we have a toddler that eats next to nothing. Sometimes eats curry.
Yeah.
Eats Chef Boyardee ravioli, which we've never even bought before this toddler. But he eats that, and he eats that like morning, noon, and night, really. And it stains all his clothes orange, so it's not
He
our favorite.
needed a better option.
I need a better option. So, I don't know why, but he ate this soup. Now, normally we offer him things, he says no. This time we didn't even offer it to him because we're kind of getting tired. But my husband was sitting on a chair eating this soup, and toddler climbed up and sat next to him, and he was watching him eat it, and he was smelling it. And after a while, he was like, I want some. So my husband gave him a bite thinking like, no way. And he was like, more, 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 until the bowl was gone. So my husband got another bowl, sat him in his high chair, ate that whole bowl too. He ate 3 bowls of this soup. Well, like 2.5.
Yeah.
You know, the half of the first bowl. So we thought maybe it's a fluke because Christy knows this story, and those of you who've ever had a toddler know this story. Sometimes they'll eat things
one day
and then never again, or not again for a month, or whatever it is. He's often like that because he likes my curry. Like, he likes the ground beef curry, he likes the seafood curry, he likes the chicken and a mango cream sauce, which is also a curry. But he'll only eat them once, and then a few months later or a month later, he won't eat them for leftovers. So this is like, it's a tricky thing.
You're telling me.
So this time, the next day, soup, soup all day, just like he wants more soup.
Soupy, soupy, soup.
So we fed him soup. And then I texted Christy, and on like day 3 or 4, also, I told everyone else in the house, you are not allowed to eat the leftovers of this soup. Like, this is for him only, because he'll actually eat it, and there's calories in there. Now, he wasn't eating it topped with things, because he does not really like texture. So I texted Christy, and I was like, I will trade you any one of my freezer meals if I can have.
Did I give it to you?
Not yet.
Not yet. I will give it to you. Thank you for reminding me.
If I can have your baked potato soup. So, and you have one in my freezer to take, actually, a barbecue
Yes.
beef. Anyway, and you can have whatever you want. You just have your pick of my freezer meals. But so then we thought, okay, maybe he'll eat soup because we called it soup. Therefore, maybe he'll eat something else. Well, after that, we had that chicken ginger turmeric one. He would not eat that soup because, you know, it had other flavors.
Well, and it was orange.
It was, yeah.
It didn't look like it.
Chunks. But then I made the other potato soup that has the ham in it. And that one you don't blend with an immersion blender. And he ate it.
So he likes potato
He
soup.
likes potato soup.
That is awesome.
He
That
would
is
not
awesome.
Eat the ham chunks.
Sure, that's fair.
But he would just take those out and put them on the side, and he would eat bowl after bowl after bowl. So that one, we still have some of the leftovers for him, so he's working his way through that. And then we discovered that he would eat mushroom soup.
Like Campbell's out of a can?
Yeah, but
Is it your version?
my version of mushroom soup is like Campbell's out of a can. But first I saute onions in some butter and oil, and then I add some onions, I said onions, and then I add some sliced mushrooms, and sometimes a bit of seasonings, definitely pepper, but sometimes some thyme, and then the mushroom soup, and then I add cheese. So it's got lots of cheddar cheese in there as well, and the milk. So he is getting some
Actual calories.
Actual calories.
Some nutrition.
He did not eat the sliced mushrooms or the onions. But
Yeah.
he ate the rest. So we're like,
Good.
soup.
Soup.
We have a new thing.
You have a soup eater in your house?
So even though baked potato soup isn't as exciting as I've made it to be, if you can get a picky eater to eat something, then I know you know why I'm as excited as I am.
This next soup is Pinto tortilla soup. It sounds like it's going to be similar to the chicken taco soup because, tortilla, taco. I promise you, it is completely different.
Although you can top this one with the same toppings.
Yes, you can. So into our large freezer bag, we are going to add some diced onion, some minced garlic, some diced red pepper, some water, quite a bit of salsa, some chili-style beans, a bay leaf or 2, some vegetable bouillon powder, and a bit of salt and pepper. You're going to mix it around in your bag, seal it up, and freeze it. When you go to cook this, you are going to allow it to thaw. You're going to either simmer it in your stovetop pot for an hour, or you can throw it in your slow cooker and do 2 to 4 hours on low. Remove your bay leaves, and then again, you can serve this topped with jalapeno jack cheese that's been grated, some tortilla chips, some sour cream, some diced avocado, basically anything that you might want to put on a taco, you can put it on this soup. Now, if you can't find the chili style beans, I know we used them in another recipe, you can just use the regular brown beans, and that is totally fine. Those are the pinto beans.
So earlier when we established that I have not had the mulligatawny at the cafe for like 20 years, it's because of how long I've lived in this house, and that's about as long as I've been making this next soup, which is our corn chowder. So into your freezer bag, or you can mix this one together in a large bowl if you're making multiples, and then you can spoon it into your freezer bags. But you're going to add some chopped onion, kernel corn, cream corn, evaporated milk, cream of mushroom soup, chicken broth, and some cooked and crumbled bacon. You are just going to get the air out of that and seal it. Now, when you go to make this, you're just gonna heat it through. So it can be done on your stovetop, it can be done in the slow cooker, It's a great one for like cold winter days if you've been out skiing or sledding or anything like that. It's great for in the summer if you don't want to heat up your stove and you just want to put it in the crock pot. It's just good all year round.
Totally, totally. I've served it in any season. I have served this to company. It's very nice with cornbread or biscuits. I'm a big fan of baking powder biscuits, and it's just lovely. It is not a wow soup. It is very humble, but it is just lovely. And I've never had somebody say, well, I mean, who's going to sit at my table and say, that was terrible, Christy? But no, everybody always really enjoys it, and I like it. And you were saying about the sensory earlier, your daughter used to love helping make this soup because the bag was so flowy. And
her son loved making this soup because he liked using our electric can opener, and then my daughter would sit there with the bag and be like, I love this.
We've had some fun in this kitchen with our kids.
Sure have. And you know what? Humble is exactly the way to describe this.
Oh,
soup.
That's exactly what it is. Mm-hmm. Yep. And not as humble is this pizza soup, but definitely kid friendly. Into your bag, you're going to add some sliced pepperoni, or you could use ground sausage that has been cooked and cooled. You're going to add in bacon that has been cooked and crumbled, some minced garlic, minced onion, some diced green pepper, some red sauce or pizza sauce, whatever kind you like, some oregano, pepper, some beef broth, and then that is it. You're going to remove the excess air and seal it up. Into a medium-sized bag, you are going to add some shredded mozzarella, and you can seal that up and staple it to your pizza soup bag. Freeze it, and when you go to make this, you're going to thaw it. You're going to heat the big bag contents in a stovetop pot on your stove, reduce the heat, simmer for 10 minutes, and then you can serve it in bowls topped with the mozzarella cheese and some croutons. The croutons are optional, but you definitely want the cheese in there, otherwise it wouldn't feel very pizza-ish. But what a fun thing to have pizza soup. You should try this with your toddler. Although he's probably not had like real pizza yet. No.
He's not a fan of anything with texture.
Right.
Although the shredded potatoes in that other potato soup
he did like.
Eat. Yeah. This next one is one that you're going to want to cook up, and then once it's done, you can separate it again into a large bag if you're going to feed your family, or you can separate it into smaller containers or the super cubes or the quart-sized bags if you're just wanting these for yourself or for lunches. You can find the super cubes in the description below. You can go right to their website. We've got a link for that there. Or you can find them in our Amazon store. For this, you're gonna add some diced onions and some peeled and sliced carrots. You're gonna just cook that until it starts to soften. Then you're gonna add some minced garlic and cook it for just another minute or so. And then add some fresh tomatoes. You can use Roma tomatoes or heirloom tomatoes. Christy actually recently gave me some tomatoes from her garden, baby tomatoes, but I just ate those on their own because they were so good.
They were so good. Nothing like a homegrown tomato.
I did not put those in a soup. Then you're gonna add some chicken broth, salt, brown sugar, and pepper. You're gonna allow this to simmer for about half an hour, and then you're gonna add some fresh basil and run an immersion blender through it until it's smooth. Then you wanna bring it to a simmer again, and then you're gonna add some heavy cream, take it off the heat. Once it's cooled, then you can transfer it into whatever container you're gonna freeze this in, and then on the day you go to make it, it's just a quick reheat. If you wanna be fancy, you can top your bowls with a little bit of cream or sour cream and some more fresh basil.
Very nice. Now, I have another tomato soup recipe. It is my husband's grandma's from way back on the farm, and I have made it several times, but my cream curdles every single time. So I'm going to tell you the trick to stop that from happening, because I did finally overcome it. There's two ways. One, you add the cream while it's cold, because it's the acid really that, it's the combination of the heat and the acid from the tomatoes that is causing your cream to curl. And I think mine has like a lighter cream, like a half and half, which might also be part of the problem, because you didn't have that problem with the heavy cream. No. The other thing that you can do is heat your cream. There's two ways to do it. You can put it on the stove and bring it up, or in the microwave, Or, so if you need your 1 cup of cream, you would slowly add tomato soup to the cream, and it's called tempering. You would temper your cream, and once it's fairly hot or fairly warm, that it's not a huge difference anymore, then you can pour it in and it should not curdle.
Interesting. I didn't have that issue.
Yeah.
But very good to know, because I wonder if maybe I didn't have the issue because there's some brown sugar that cuts the acidity of the tomatoes.
Maybe.
Or it could be the heavy cream versus the half and half.
This hearty sausage and zucchini soup has been in our repertoire for many years. Charlotte and I have been making freezer meals for about 13 years now. Together.
Separate before that.
Yes, and this was one of the first ones that we made. And originally it was made with spinach, and we had it and we're like, it got stringy.
Yeah.
Flavor was good, but we're like, so we changed it up to zucchini, and it has been a hit every time ever since.
I probably say this every single time we tell you about this soup, but one of my sons, I'm trying to think, is he my middle son, maybe? My middle-ish son. This is his favorite freezer meal. Like, not just his favorite soup, this is his favorite meal of all time. So that's how tasty this is.
It is very good. Into our large freezer bag, we are going to add our sausage that has been browned and cooled. We're going to add pasta sauce, white kidney beans, diced zucchini, chopped carrots, diced onion, minced garlic, and some chicken broth, or if you prefer, you can leave your chicken broth out until the day you go to cook this, because it does make your bag quite a bit thicker. And if you want to make sure that you get that extra bit of pasta sauce out of the jar, you can pour a little bit of your chicken broth in there if you're adding it, and then shake it up and then dump it in, and you just feel better that nothing is getting wasted. And so you're gonna get your excess air out, and you're gonna seal it up, and then in a medium-sized bag, you're going to add small pasta. So it could be shells, it could be macaroni, something on the smaller side, and staple those bags together so that it's all ready to go when you go to make this meal. On the day of cooking, you're going to allow it to thaw, and you're going to get this soup to a simmer on your stovetop, and then simmer for about an hour, and then you can add in your pasta. When the pasta is cooked, this is ready to eat. You don't need to add another thing to this soup. It is perfect.
It's hearty. You don't need buns. You don't need biscuits. It's great.
It is. And kind of like the lasagna soup, if you would like to have this a little bit on the spicier side, you use spicy Italian sausage. If you want it on the milder side, you just use the mild. Really, you can make freezer meals your own.
This next one is another one that you're going to fully make and then get it into your freezer containers, so that, again, it's great for dividing if you're doing individual servings, or you can just put it into a large freezer bag if you're doing a family serving. This is one where I had asked on my personal Facebook page, like, does anyone have amazing soups because I'm not bored. I mean, as you can see, we have a lot of soup recipes, but I'm always looking to try new things. It's like one of my favorite things on the planet is trying new foods. It's up there for me. And so actually, I'm trying a new restaurant this week.
Oh, yes, you are.
I'm so excited about it, but I'll tell you about that in a different video when I've actually gone and tried this restaurant. It's like a dining experience.
Right.
So we'll see. Anyway, back to the food. So this is our sauerkraut soup, because my friend Heather replied on my Facebook thing and said, like, you have to try my sauerkraut soup. And after she put that, and lots of people gave their soup recipes, and they look good too. But the reason that I tried Heather's sauerkraut soup, and we made it pretty much immediately, was because about 6 other people were like, oh, sauerkraut soup. I used to have that as a kid, or like, I love that. It's one of my favorites, or sauerkraut soup is the best. And I was like, I have never heard of such a thing. Like, who would put sauerkraut in soup?
Well, it's like the dill pickle soup.
Yes.
And that's what we talked about before we made it. We're like, it might remind us of that. And sure enough, it did.
Yeah.
Because it's got that sharp taste, right? Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot going on in this soup.
There is a lot going on.
Hearty. So into your stovetop pot, you're going to add some chicken broth, some water, and a head of cauliflower florets, diced onion, peeled and sliced carrots, salt, pepper, and a bit of cayenne. You can adjust that depending on your spice tolerance. You're gonna boil this until your vegetables are soft, and then you're gonna blend it with an immersion blender so it's gonna be really, really nice and thick. Then you're gonna add a whole liter, yes, I said liter, of sauerkraut.
It's similar to a quart for the Americans. It's like 4 cups.
Yes, it's a lot of sauerkraut.
Yeah.
And this part does not go through the immersion blender, so you have like the texture of that sauerkraut in there. And then you're gonna add a sliced garlic sausage ring. You're gonna simmer it for 2 hours. So like the flavors of that garlic sausage are gonna meld throughout that whole soup. And the tanginess from the sauerkraut is just gonna, it's just gonna all get in there. And then you're gonna allow it to cool before you transfer it into your freezer bags or your freezer safe containers. Now, the day that we initially made this, Christy and I had to try it right then and there.
Yes, we did.
So curious. But
then we froze it, and then we tried it, and it holds up. It is dynamite.
Yeah, and we did it in the super cubes. So then, because we both work from home, we can just have like a serving whenever we want.
This next recipe is vegetarian taco soup. We're going to start by getting out our large resealable freezer bag. We're going to put into it kidney beans that have been rinsed and drained, white kidney beans, also rinsed and drained, some diced tomatoes, some kernel corn, some chopped onion, tomato sauce, diced chilies, and taco seasoning, and some water. You're going to mix that all around. You don't even need a bowl for this. You're going to seal it up and freeze it. When you go to cook this, you want to simmer it in a stovetop pot for 20 minutes. Or honestly, you could heat this in the microwave long enough that your onions are a bit soft, and then you can have this. And then again, like the other taco soup that we have, you can top this with some of the sour cream or the taco chips or a little bit of cheese, whatever you like. Maybe a bit of avocado in this, that would be good. Like, you know what I mean? You just go ahead and top this up.
I think cilantro would be really good on here, like some fresh cilantro at the end.
If you're a cilantro person, I think you would like that.
True story.
And serve it up. And it's super simple, obviously very healthy.
This next soup recipe was, I think, in our top 12 of 2023.
Oh, definitely.
This is our sweet potato soup. So it was one that we invented last year, and it sounds simple, but it tastes complex.
Oh yeah, yes.
All right, so into your large freezer bag, you're gonna add some peeled and diced sweet potato, some diced onion, minced garlic, some sliced celery, unless you're allergic like me, and then you can skip that part, some diced red pepper, olive oil, paprika, turmeric, cinnamon, cayenne, a bay leaf, some vegetable broth, some drained chickpeas, soy sauce, and diced tomatoes. So you actually do have a lot going on in this bag, and lots of beautiful colors too. You're gonna squish that all together in your bag. You're gonna get out your air seal it and freeze it. And making this one, you're just gonna simmer it in a large stovetop pot for at least 20 minutes. And then if you want, you can add some chopped fresh basil, cook it for another 5 minutes, and serve it.
Oh yeah, we were so excited when we made this. Like this was like a spinach and artichoke quesadilla sort of day. It was that good. Like we were just so excited about it when we finally got to have it.
Actually, when you say that, spinach and artichoke quesadillas would be really good with to serve with.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
Oh, that would be a nice meal.
That would be like the marriage of two perfect freezer meals. And you can make quesadillas into freezer meals. We have a ton of them if you didn't know.
Check out freezermeals101.com or the Freezer Meals 101 Club to find our quesadilla recipes, our soup recipes. We will, in the description below this video, have links to the individual recipes that we've shared with you today so that you can make them yourself.
Yes.
We don't suggest that you make all 25 of these recipes on the same day,
nope.
Especially because a lot of them require you to use a stovetop pot. And so unless you have like 12 stovetop pots and burners at your disposal.
Yes, if you happen to have a commercial kitchen, you just go right ahead. But honestly, if this was all that was in my freezer, I might get souped out.
Totally. We're just suggesting that you pick and choose your favorites to add into your freezer meal repertoire along with your other meals. And if you're looking for other meal ideas, of course, we have you covered because we have over 400 recipes.
Yes,
so
ma'am, we do.
You're going to be okay on that front. But just pick and choose your favorites from this video, whatever looks appetizing to you, whatever you would love or you think your family would love, and then make those. But we do suggest that you at least double them so that it's the same amount of work. And then you end up with more. Whether you're going to make them into individual servings or you're going to make them into family size servings, either way, just double them and you'll thank yourself later.
Yes. This enchilada soup, again, sounds like it's going to be very similar to the chicken taco soup or the vegetarian taco soup.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just realizing that you did get all of
I got all of the Mexican soups.
Soup.
I really did. And it's okay. It's okay because they are different. Like,
Yes.
they're not cookie cutter. They are not the same. And actually, this one is really different. The enchilada soup is really different from the other soups.
It is.
It is. But if you're going to make all of these soups, you go to Costco and get the big thing of taco seasoning.
You sure do, because we've got that.
Yeah, we go through like one a year or faster than that. So in the enchilada soup, stick with me, you really, really are gonna love this. In your large freezer bag, you're going to add 3 boneless, skinless chicken breasts, some minced garlic, some chili powder, Worcestershire sauce, hot sauce, a chopped onion, some chopped red pepper, some black beans that have been rinsed and drained, kernel corn, not drained, and enchilada sauce and chicken broth. You'll add in some salt and pepper, and that is it. You're going to mix it around in your bag, zip it up, freeze it. When you go to cook this, you are going to allow it to thaw, get it into your crock pot. You're going to cook this on low for 4 to 6 hours. You're going to shred your chicken, and then at the very end, you're going to add some heavy cream, some sour cream, and some shredded cheese. You're going to mix that in and let that melt. And so with the enchilada sauce and the cheddar cheese in it, mixing around, you are going to love this soup. And that's it, you are done. So you want to shred your chicken. You want to put it into bowls. This one is also recommended to serve with cilantro. I still like the idea of putting the taco chips on it because it kind of does the thing that crackers do. And this is very different from the other Mexican soups. I promise.
Especially if you like enchilada sauce.
Yeah.
It's a great one.
Well, an enchilada sauce is so good.
You know, if you've ever said to yourself, like, I could eat enchilada sauce by the spoonful.
Kind of, right?
We've just given you the opportunity.
Yes, we have.
This soup is called Hamburger Hoobie soup because the family that I got it from calls tomatoes Hoobies. So into your large freezer bag, you're gonna add some browned and cooled ground beef, diced onion, peeled and chopped carrots, some chopped celery, diced tomatoes, a can of tomato soup, some barley, a bay leaf, parsley, thyme, and pepper. Squish that all together in your bag and get that in your freezer. When you're cooking this, you can do it in the slow cooker or on the stovetop. You want to add some water and some beef broth. Now this one is actually a really giant recipe, so this is great for if you have a group. Like if you are hosting a toboggan party or like at winter campfire, you know, sit around and chat, or, you know, one of those days where it's sort of an outdoor day and you have to feed everybody, like this can easily serve a crowd because it serves 8 people, but that's if you
That's conservative.
have it. I know.
It's a big soup.
If you're not serving buns with it or whatever.
Yeah.
So if you had like one of our slider recipes, like our cheeseburger sliders.
Oh, that would go so
or-
good with this.
I know.
Even the ham and cheese.
Ham and cheese sliders, pizza sliders, any of the sliders
Yeah.
that we have would go really well with this. And so you could cook the sliders up in your oven, and then everybody could take like a slider and the soup, and they would be full, and you could easily feed like at least a dozen people.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, I love that you mentioned the skating party because I grew up going to skating parties. I'm sorry if you live in Florida and you've never seen ice or snow, but up here in northern Alberta, you go to skating parties. Everybody kind of knows how to skate.
They probably go to beach parties, which kind of sounds a little better, but
it does. But you can't take this soup there. No, it would be a terrible soup to take to a beach party.
And the sliders, like you'd get sand in there.
Yeah, no.
We're just trying to make ourselves feel better about living here.
Okay, this curry lentil soup is another make on the stove and then bag it up and freeze it. So let's get started. Into your stovetop pot, you're going to add a little bit of oil, some diced onion, some carrots, some red pepper, and you want to cook that for about 5 minutes. Keep stirring it, so it doesn't get too browned on you. You're going to stir in some minced garlic, some minced ginger, a bit of curry powder, some cayenne, and some red pepper flakes. Give it another minute. Then add your lentils that have been rinsed and drained, and you're going to add in your broth. Right now, you could use a vegetable broth for this, some fire roasted tomatoes, coconut milk, and a bit of lime juice. You're going to turn up your heat and bring that to a boil and let it simmer for about 20 minutes, stirring occasionally. You just want to make sure that your lentils are soft. You're going to run an immersion blender through this. We should be getting sponsored for an immersion blender. This has been the video for the immersion blender. I made my kids French toast this morning and I used an immersion blender in the egg.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, because then you never, like the little bits that are gooey, they totally disappear and it's much smoother. It was very nice.
We do have an immersion blender in our Amazon shop in the link below if you don't have one and you need one. So, yeah.
Just saying. Just saying. So you're going to run an immersion blender through this soup and you're going to season it with salt and pepper. Once it's cooled, that's when you can transfer it into your super cubes, whatever container you want, or into a large freezer bag or medium-sized freezer bags if you want to do it for individual meals, and then remove the excess air, seal it up, and freeze it. When you go to cook this, you let it thaw a bit, bring it back. It's just a simple reheat, microwave. You can reheat it really quickly on the stove, and it is a really nice vegetarian dish that has lots of protein and actually lots of fiber for a soup. Yeah, it's good for you.
Not all of our soup recipes made it into this video. First, because again, we don't want it to be 3 hours, but also because not all of our soups made it to the Freezer Meals 101 Club because some of them weren't all that good. And
it's happened.
Recently, we tried a pumpkin sweet potato soup,
and
it was kind of a flop. It wasn't terrible, but it definitely was not club worthy. So if you have a good pumpkin soup recipe, can you put it in the comments below? Because we are looking, especially for next fall, next year, for a pumpkin soup recipe that's really good, and this one just was not. I had invented it, and yeah, it had issues.
It had issues, and we sometimes talk about, can we save this soup? Do you know what we still need to do? The lemon rice soup.
Yes, we do. There's a restaurant in the town near us that has a Greek lemon rice soup, and they have a cookbook that you can buy. So I've thought of buying the cookbook because that recipe's in it, and then trying to freezer mealize that soup because it really is that good. I think we'd have to really play with it to not get the rice mushy. But maybe a task for us for next year. But this next soup, we have put it through its paces. And
oh, yes, we have.
And it...
and we even tweaked it after we first ate it.
Because it was too cheesy.
Who says that?
Cheesy cauliflower soup. You want it to be cheesy, but it was
too rich.
Cheesy. So this is the version that is actually good.
Yeah, we're not going to give you bad soups today.
Into your large freezer bag, you're going to add some cauliflower florets. They can be fresh or frozen. Then you're going to add some shredded cheddar cheese, diced onion, minced garlic, butter, heavy cream, some cubed cream cheese, vegetable or chicken broth, salt, and pepper. It is a really full bag with those cauliflower florets, but you're gonna get as much air as you can out of there and get it sealed up. When you take it out of your freezer, you're gonna allow it to thaw, and then you can heat this one in the slow cooker or in the Instant Pot, or you could do this on your stovetop, but low and slow is better. So we recommend the slow cooker or Instant Pot. Then once it is cooked, you're gonna run an immersion blender. Speaking of immersion blenders, through that soup to blend it up. And then this one is very similar to the baked potato soup, not so much in taste, but in the fact that you're gonna top this with some crumbled cooked bacon, some sliced green onions, and some more cheddar cheese. So it does look like baked potato soup.
Yeah. This pesto minestrone is one that we have been making for years and years, and we had a couple of iterations of pesto minestrone, and we always would laugh at ourselves because we'd be like, oh, we like this one because it's got a cup of like white wine in it, but you can taste it. Do you remember I gave some to my kid's piano teacher? She had had a surgery or broke her leg or something, and so I gave her some freezer meals, and she texted me and she's like, did that minestrone have wine in it? I'm like, you can taste that? That's amazing. And I'm like, and also, is that okay?
Right.
I didn't even think of that, to be honest. And she's like, oh yeah, this was very, very good.
It is very, very
For such a
good.
simple soup, and without the wine, it's not the same. So if you have a good minestrone recipe, throw a cup of wine in there and you have an excellent minestrone recipe.
Okay, and actually, I have something to tell you about your wine. If you have extra wine, and I know everybody jokes whenever I say something about the extra wine, that who has extra wine and whatever, but well, I do. So actually, recently Christy and I needed wine for a recipe, and it was white wine, and I still have that bottle sitting in my fridge. This, like, whatever we used, a cup or whatever of it, it's still just sitting in my fridge.
She doesn't drink wine, and I don't drink at all, so.
No, so it's like when you have leftover wine, if you do, then you can freeze it, and what you do is you put it in ice cube trays and freeze it that way, and once it's fully frozen, you pop them out, and then you put them into, you know, like a medium or quart-size freezer bag, and of course, do all the things. Get the air out, seal it, like we've been telling you for these other things, because nobody wants freezer burn on their wine ice cubes either. And then you can use those in different dishes. So like the white wine goes really well in soup, it goes really well with shrimp, it goes well on like with a cream pasta sauce, amazing. And then the red wine goes really well to like deepen a chili, stew, anything with beef, really, not anything, but like a lot of beef dishes goes really, really well. So anyway, that's my little wine tip for you.
And I'm gonna add one more thing. The old school ice trays, typically each one of those is 2 tablespoons. So that is 1/8 of a cup. So 8 of those will make 1 cup. See?
Now you know.
And I know that from making baby food.
Right.
Because
the things you learn.
I would measure them, and when my kids were getting hungrier, I'm like, oh, we're going from 1/8 of a cup now to 1/4 cup. We're gonna add another ice cube in there, right? I like that kind of stuff. All right, so back to the pesto minestrone. I promise we will get to the soup. We are going to start out by putting some bow tie pasta into a medium-sized freezer bag and setting that aside. Into the large freezer bag, we are going to add some diced onion, minced garlic, chopped celery, some sliced carrots. Here's your wine. Honestly, if you don't want to use wine, you can use apple juice. We just like joking about the wine too. We're going to add in diced tomatoes, mixed beans that have been drained and rinsed, some tomato paste, some Italian seasoning, some pepper, and some Parmesan cheese that has been grated, and then a little bit of pesto right into the bag. You're gonna mix this all around, get that excess air out, seal it up and staple those bags together, throw it into your freezer. When you go to cook this, really, you just need to allow it to thaw, get it into your stovetop pot. You're going to bring it to a boil, then reduce the heat, simmer for about 20 minutes, and then add your pasta in. Give it another 10 minutes, and wait until your pasta is just right, and then you can serve it. Just like that. It's also really nice to do in your slow cooker. Again, just add the pasta later on. You really only need to cook this for like 2 or 3 hours on low. And wow, you're going to surprise people with how good this is. You will be so happy.
I like to top it with some Parmesan cheese. I know it already has Parmesan in it, but it just Does make it a little fancier. And then also red pepper flakes, because I like red pepper flakes on almost anything. You know, cozy winter comfort soups. What would a video about soups be without a chicken noodle soup? This one is super simple, but it has all of that cozy comfort food feeling to it. So into your large freezer bag, you're gonna add some boneless, skinless chicken breasts, peeled and chopped carrots, diced onion, chopped celery, minced garlic, thyme, a bay leaf, chicken broth. I usually add some of it to the bag and then make a note to add some more on the day of cooking, just so your bag doesn't get so thick. Some water, parsley, salt, and pepper. When you go to make this, you're gonna cook it in your slow cooker on low for 4 to 5 hours. You're gonna take the chicken out, cube it or shred it, and put it back in. Then you're gonna add 2 cups of egg noodles that are not cooked, and you're gonna allow them to cook up right there in your soup. And between the egg noodles and the chicken and the broth of this, it's just like that childhood memory chicken noodle soup thing, and oh, it's good.
It is
Homemade
so
chicken
good.
noodle soup.
Yes. And what do they always say? Like a chicken noodle soup is, well, it's good for the soul, because that's a book. But Chicken Soup for the Soul, right? Wasn't that a series of books about wholesome stories?
A prolific series.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
hundreds, yeah.
Yes. No, but if you have a cold, then you
yeah.
have chicken noodle soup. That was like the antidote for having a cold, you know? That's really fun. This recipe is tortellini soup, and it is unlike any of the other soups that we have done because it's got fresh tortellini in it. This is just such a beautiful, hearty soup, and here is how you make it. Into your large freezer bag, you're going to add a chopped onion, some chicken broth or vegetable broth, some pasta sauce, or if you're in the Freezer Meals 101 Club, you can add red sauce instead. You're going to add in minced garlic, Italian seasoning, some chili flakes, some water, and some mixed vegetables that are frozen. So you can go to the store and decide, like, these look like the kind I want, or I could have these kind. It's whatever you want, and then you can also mix it up every time you make it, because you can get different frozen vegetable mixes at the grocery store, and it just makes it super easy. You're going to seal it up, and you have then your package of fresh tortellini, or you can get it frozen, to be honest. Now, if you think that when you go to make this, that package of tortellini will still be there where you left it, you can go ahead and use that, or you can go ahead and freeze it just the way it is. Or if you think it might disappear because you have like other people living in your house who might just make tortellini because they didn't know that it was earmarked for this soup, you might want to take that tortellini, put it in another bag, and then staple those bags together. So then they know, don't take my tortellini. And we speak from experience because that has totally happened to both of us.
Yes.
You cannot eat that. I wasn't going to use those for freezer meals. So on the day that you go to cook this, you're going to allow it to thaw. Get that soup part into your crock pot. You're going to put it on low for 4 to 6 hours and really let it soupify. 20 minutes or so before you go to cook this, that's when you're going to add the tortellini. The reason we don't add it at the beginning, fresh tortellini is going to, like if you were cooking it on the stove, it cooks up in like 5 or 6 minutes. To do it in the slow cooker, it takes a little bit longer. But if you put it in at the beginning, it would suck all of your moisture up and you would just have mushy tortellini. So you just put it in at the end. And this serves a large amount of people, and you kind of want to serve this to a large amount of people because the leftovers of it can sometimes have the mushy tortellini.
Yes.
If that doesn't bother you, go ahead and have it for leftovers. That's totally okay. If that's not your jam, just make sure you serve this to a crowd or make it a smaller amount, or you know what I mean. Boy, is it good though. Oh man, is it good.
And you do not need a sandwich or a bun or a quesadilla or a biscuit
No, you
with
do
this,
not.
because the tortellini makes it super hearty and it's a full meal.
And we tend to use the cheese tortellini, but you could do this with chicken tortellini. You could do, like, there's different kinds. There's the tricolor, the one that you get at Costco. Mm-hmm. You could use whatever you like, and you'll find your groove.
And a note on the Costco tortellini, it comes in a 3-pack. And so what I do is, if I don't need it for a freezer meal like right away, because I mean we have a freezer meal lifestyle, so we pretty much just use freezer meals, then what I do is I slice it so that it creates 3 individual packs, and then I toss them in the freezer, and then I can pull them out as needed. And it's just, if I'm able to get it on sale or something, then I'll buy it, put it in the freezer until I have something to make with it.
So you could make 3 soups, or you could make 2 soups and just have a tortellini night, throw it in some sauce.
Or we have some really good tortellini recipes.
Yeah, we do. We have a tortellini skillet. We haven't had that in a long time.
The tortellini sausage skillet, I know, I've been thinking about it.
We need to do it in our next mega session.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
And there's a baked tortellini Alfredo we have that's really versatile and really yum.
And then a tortellini casserole.
We have a lot of
tortellini recipes. We go on these kicks, right? So yeah, do it. Just get the tortellini and enjoy this recipe.
The spicy red lentil soup is another one that you're gonna wanna cook on the stovetop, fully cook it, and then portion it into individual bags. Now this is one that I actually like to bring with us if we go on a ski trip. And I think it's because in my head it goes with skiing, because I got the recipe from my sister-in-law after we went cross-country skiing together and then went to her house afterwards, and this is what she served to everyone. It was one of those days where like you work really hard because
it's hard work. Cross-country skiing is hard work.
You want to work up a sweat? Like go cross-country skiing. Which sounds funny because it's winter and it's cold, but that is a workout. So into your stovetop pot, you're gonna saute some onions in olive oil. You're gonna add some minced garlic, cumin, paprika, and cayenne pepper, and just cook that up for a minute or so. And then you're gonna add some chicken broth, some red lentils that have been rinsed and drained, tomato paste, and a bay leaf. You're gonna cover that and bring it to a boil. You can stir it here and there. Then you're going to simmer it for half an hour. You just want to wait until those lentils are tender. You want to get rid of your bay leaf. You're gonna run an immersion blender through this, and then you're gonna stir in a can of evaporated milk, simmer it for a few more minutes, add some salt and pepper, and then when it's cooled, you're gonna transfer it into your freezer bags or freezer containers like those super cubes. And this one, because it's all cooked and it's all immersion blenderized, it's just a quick reheat when you go to make it, which is also what makes it great for taking on a ski trip or whatever. I do want to say that if you are cooking the soups up ahead, like we shared a lot with you, almost half of what we shared with you today, we said that it's best to cook it up ahead and then portion it out. Well, if you're gonna do that, you do wanna wait for it to be cool. There's a lot of reasons for that. One is if you add it into your freezer bag, you get condensation in the bag, and then condensation can also lead to freezer burn, and we don't wanna have freezer burn. It also can heat things up in your freezer and bring them to an unsafe temperature because you're putting like piping hot soup on top of a frozen meal.
And it makes your freezer work harder, and you can get frost in your freezer just from that, especially like in the super cubes if any of the steam or whatever is escaping, not so much in the bags, but yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah, so it's just recommended that you allow it to fully cool before you transfer it into whatever container you're using. And the other thing with that is we did share all these ones that you cook up ahead and that are great for individual servings, but I want to say that any of the ones we shared that go into the bag, you can cook those up, and then when they're
and
cooked,
then
divide them, and they're great for individual servings. So
with the exception of the tortellini.
Yes. Yeah,
you could divide your tortellini into smaller bags.
You could.
You could, and then when you heat it, you can add your tortellini in just your small amount, and you can have an individual serving that way. You totally can.
Yeah, I would say there's like a few of these soups that might not lend themselves well to the individual portions because of that. But in general, these are all such good lunch options.
Yeah.
And individual serving options. Yeah, it's just, soup is super.
And it is definitely soup season here. We are so glad that you were able to join us today and hear us ramble on for an hour
and on
about soup.
We're gonna put a video right there that is not all soup recipes. We're gonna do rotisserie chicken meals over there for you.
We'll get off the soup train.
Thank you so much for being here today, and happy cooking.
Bye.